Oklahoma is realizing that first years with a new head coach aren't easy. Texas takes advantage of that and wins the Red River Showdown, and the treasured Golden Hat is finally back in Austin. All this and more coming up next on College Crossfire.
What are those? Coming back to that 2021 MVP. He's better than Josh Allen. He's better than Major Wakefield. He's not better than Mahomes. I can't say that.
Well, the mythic kick, you get kicked. So,
You know, bag of money or whatever, some food inside of them. No, that is a great answer. How dare you? Oh, man.
Good evening, one and all, and welcome to College Crossfire, the best collegiate sports debate show in the world. I'm your host, Tommy Yarsh. We've got another great show lined up for you as always. I've got an Oklahoma jersey here in my lap. We're going to get on that in just a minute here. But first, let's meet our contestant. Starting on first base, it's our winner from last week, and he's in especially good mood tonight after his Texans finally found the win column against Jacksonville. It's Ryan Swankowski. How's it going, man?
It's going great. Like I just said, Texans got the dub. Couldn't be happier. Excited to be back. Looking for win number 2 in a row. So.
Yeah, probably not. Anyways,
okay.
Sitting next to him over on second base, coming from the back alley, also known as Master Control, riding high on his Ravens, defeating the Bengals off the leg of Texas legend Justin Tucker, by the way. He's one of the great people who makes this show possible. It's our executive producer, Jordan Geelhoed, coming onto the screen. Welcome, Jordan.
Thank you for having me. Yeah, it's so great to be here. Usually I'm on the other side of that wall, but now I'm here in this seat. Big shout out to Adam Ogburn and Samantha Pearl for letting me be here. Excited to duke it out.
Absolutely, we're happy to have you on this side. And last but certainly not least, back to renew his rivalry with our reigning champion Ryan, making his Crossfire debut. It's former VipeU co-worker Robert Gonsoulin. Robert, welcome to the show, man.
Hey, thanks for having me, Tommy. I'm glad to be here. Glad to make my debut, and it's heart of the college football season. I'm just really happy to be here.
And to talk about the success of the VipeU internship program, myself, Ryan Swankowski, and Robert Gonsoulin, all stunning figures to come out of there. Shout out to the folks over at Vipe. Sorry,
I should apply to VipeU. Yeah, I know. Yeah.
So don't think it's enough credit off of you. Great to have you guys here. I mentioned the Oklahoma jersey at the start of the video. Take a look at this. On the back it says 47 straight. The Oklahoma Sooners won 47 straight games from 1953 to 1957. That's the longest winning streak in college football history. Fast forward to 2022, on October 8th, the Oklahoma Sooners came in a little banged up. This is the worst Oklahoma has looked since 1998, and the Texas Longhorns did that to them.
Yeah.
49-0 shutout. So we're going to start right there, obviously. Texas comes in off a bounce-back win over West Virginia. They come into Red River Week. Our contestant score predictions last week, let's go ahead and revisit that. Justin Guzman said it was going to be 38-30. Rohan Ramula said 34-31 Texas. And Ryan here predicted 42-30. Somehow he was the closest in the Longhorns' favor. All these two were way off regardless. Texas shut out the Sooners 49-0, like I mentioned. That's the largest margin of victory in Red River history. A lot of things went right for Texas in that win. But what would you all say was the sole biggest factor for their success? Ryan, we'll start on first base with you.
Yeah, I'll say the sole biggest factor had to be the knowledge of the Wildcat by the Longhorns. I mean, you look at this season and last season, the Wildcat has been a part of their offense pretty heavily in both seasons. And you don't think Coach Steve Sarkisian somewhat knew that this could be coming? He knows the Wildcat extremely well, as long as Coach Flood does too. And they prepared for 2 different offensive looks. They knew what was coming, and they prepared for it great. Texas' run defense this year also ranks in the top 45, 3.66 yards per carry. I don't know what they were thinking with the Wildcat, but we know that very well. We run it every week. So it had to be the knowledge of the Wildcat for me, Tommy.
A little bit of a slow start there. Once they kind of pulled that out of the system, it took Texas a couple of drives to figure that out and try to limit Eric Gray. We haven't really seen too much triple option from the Oklahoma offense, but they just did not trust Davis Bevel whatsoever. Jordan, your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, to me, I think it's a little bit obvious. I think the biggest determining factor was the guy under center, Quinn Ewers. It was his first game back after that nasty-looking injury against Alabama, and I was worried that he might have a little bit of limitations. Maybe the coaches would try and hold him back a little bit, but I didn't see any of that on the field. As he was dealing, he went 21-31, 289 yards, 4 touchdowns, and keep in mind, he didn't even play most of the fourth quarter, so that's a pretty darn good 3-quarter stat line. Yeah, I mean, Hudson Card, all due respect to him, great fill-in, but this Texas offense just looks so much more explosive when Ewers is under center because he's able to make the reads and the throws that just a lot of college quarterbacks aren't able to make at his level. And hats off to the defense, of course. Getting a shutout against Oklahoma is a huge, huge accomplishment, but they didn't have to really do all that much, in my opinion. They kind of just sat back, watched the OU offense kind of implode in on itself. In my opinion, Texas dominated this game from start to finish, and it starts and finishes with Quinn Ewers.
And you mentioned good stats from Quinn Ewers. The craziest thing is Quinn Ewers in his career at Texas has yet to play an entire game. You look back at the ULM game, he got pulled early in that one as well. Then in Alabama, he gets injured in the first quarter. Now he comes back against Oklahoma, and he gets pulled out early just because the Longhorns ran a train on the Sooners all night long. Ryan, close us out.
You know what, Tommy?
Robert's on that. You know what, you get a free pointer.
Hey, all good. You know what, Tommy? I want to beg to differ with Jordan a little bit. I think the defense played a phenomenal job and actually contributed a lot to why Texas won. You know, 49-0, biggest margin of deficit in the entire Red River Showdown history. It really didn't matter who was playing quarterback. Yes, Ewers was the man under center. He was the guy for the show. But if we had Hudson Card in the game, it's still 0 points that the Sooners score. They were forced to punt 8 times, two turnovers on downs and 2 interceptions. They practically took over the game and didn't. And, you know, the offense could have played a mid, a mediocre game. It wouldn't have mattered because the defense just played so well.
Good point there. I like Jordan's point the most, though, on this one. Quinn Ewers, I think, was by far the determining factor in that game. Without Quinn Ewers, this would have looked a lot different. Like Robert said, I think this would have been somewhat the same result. I don't think they win 49-0, though. So for that reason, Jordan, you get the 3 points. Robert, you're going to follow up with the 2. Ryan, close it out with the 1. Let's turn the table around here to the Sooners now. First-year head coach Brent Venables is feeling the same sort of heat that Steve Sarkisian did last year in his first season with the Longhorns. The Sooners have yet to win a Big 12 matchup 3 games into conference play. And overall, their team just straight up has played like this. If the camera cuts back, there we go. This, if you can't tell, it's poop. Panelists, say you're in Brent Venables' shoes up in Norman. You've got Kansas coming in this week. Now, granted, Jalen Daniels is out this game, but that's still a talented Jayhawks team, one of the better offenses in the Big 12. How do you start trying to turn this ship around? Jordan?
Well, first of all, and I think that this goes without saying, I mean, OU should know this, but it might be tempting to rush Dillon Gabriel back into the game, seeing what the QB situation was like this past weekend. But if he's not ready to go in any sort of way, do not put him out there. You can't risk that head injury. I mean, you should know that already. That goes without saying. But with that being said, Dillon Gabriel's departure leaves kind of a vacuum at the QB position for Oklahoma, and I think that their backup depth is really lacking, in large part due to the transfer portal, right? Caleb Williams, Spencer Rattler, Ben Harris, I believe, they all ditched Norman and left OU with kind of nothing there. And I think that what Brent Venables and his OC have to do is try and give the backup QBs at least somewhat of a chance, because even though I didn't see anything inspiring from Davis Beville this past weekend, you're not going to win anything running out of the Wildcat. Like, you're just not if you're running out of that the majority of the game. And so I think it might be time to give General Booty a shot. Who knows? But like you mentioned the Kansas QB, he went out early this past weekend, and his backup, Bean, I think, while Kansas didn't win, he's still really good. He put up 4 touchdowns. Or even look at TCU. Max Duggan wasn't even supposed to start this coming into this season, and TCU looks great. They're undefeated. So I think that they have to trust their quarterback at least a little bit.
And it certainly seemed like Jeff Lebby didn't trust Davis Beville at all against Texas. And he talked a little bit about earlier this week in his press conference where he kind of agreed to that, and people questioning why didn't guys like General Booty get a shot, or why didn't the true freshman Nick Evers get put into the game a little bit earlier to try and give Oklahoma any sort of life offensively. They were completely void of that last Saturday. Robert, continue on.
You know, if I'm in Venables' shoes, I actually do want to put my faith back in Dillon Gabriel. They need to remember that he's the quarterback who brought them to 3-0 at the beginning of the season and beat a quite talented UTEP team instead of just a team that went 0-3 in the Big 12 to start. Dillon Gabriel, what needs to happen is Venables needs to work on getting Gabriel as most comfortable with the offense as possible, and the offense getting as comfortable with him. It starts with putting him in practice with the ones, doing more group sessions in practice instead of just running individuals like 7-on-7 or running like full plays in the offense. Gabriel just needs to be ready. He needs to be prepared. This weekend is when we really find out, is Kansas that good of a team, and is OU really that bad? It's going to start with starting where they were at the very beginning of the season, and then putting Gabriel back to square one.
certainly whenever you get a transfer portal quarterback, it's definitely difficult to try and get them to adapt to the offense a little bit. It certainly seems like Gabriel has been struggling with that after coming over from UCF. We'll see if he plays again this week and how the Oklahoma Sooners offense looks with him back at the helm. Ryan?
Yep, to turn the ship around for Brent Venables and OU, I got 3 H's for you. Get healthy, get hot, and get hungry. Get healthy, I mean Dillon Gabriel. Obviously, Dillon Gabriel was the key to that Oklahoma offense through the first however many games they played before he got completely injured. I mean, their offense just looked absolutely just horrible without him. You could tell they had to run Wildcat and all these different looks. It was awful. First off, they need to get him healthy and the defense healthy. Second off, they got to get hot. All of that means is just win a game. Get the losing streak off of your belt, get it out of the way, take the pressure off you that you're losing a lot of these games, and then not get healthy, not get hot, get hungry. What are they doing? You're down 28-0, and you're still running Wildcat in the second and third quarter. How are you going to keep doing that? How about you change it up? Maybe put General Booty in the game. Maybe throw some screen passes, throw some slants. Those are my 3 things that they had to do to turn the ship around, and I hope they do it for them.
Well, big fan of the 3 H's. I think you nailed it on the head there, so for that, you're going to get the 3 points. Jordan right behind him with the 2. Robert rounds us out with the 1. Last question here are these first trifectas. Now let's take a look at now let's take a look at next week's game. Iowa State has beaten Texas the past 3 years. Come into this year, they have the 11th best defense in the country in terms of yards allowed per game. And while they're still struggling to score on offense, their defense has kept them in close games. They've only lost the past 3 by just a combined 11 points. How does Texas find consistency and avoid falling into a potential trap game? Robert, go ahead and start us off.
Well, Iowa State, they do rank 11 in yards allowed per season on the defense. Okay, great. That's about 500 yards. Passing yards-wise, 1,100 yards. Not very good. That means that their weakness is going to be the passing game. Rely on Quinn Ewers to get his receivers open. He can really hit Jordan Whittington on those downfield, midfield passes. He also has Sanders and Worthy out there to help him. Yes, the running game is great. Bijan Robinson, Roshan, Keelan Robinson. But how are y'all going to win games without Ewers? We saw us lose to Texas Tech without him. We didn't have Ewers for the majority of the Alabama game. We've lost games without him. If you can focus on Quinn Ewers to actually target their weakness on Iowa State, then you can actually win this game. Obviously, 1,100 yards, that's a lot through week 6. Find that weakness, execute it, and get Quinn Ewers healthy. Rely on him, get him to do his thing.
Quinn Ewers is certainly going to be a big part of this game just because the front 7 for Iowa State so good last year, stopping the run. They held Texas just 104 yards on the ground. That was their second lowest total of the season. So the Cyclones certainly know what they're doing on that front. Ryan, your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm going to say Texas just needs to do 2 things, control the clock and control the ball. You saw against Tech, when everybody started freaking out, we had a lot of short drives and a lot of punts. You got to control the clock there. They had Texas Tech had 9 more minutes of time of possession over us. That's a huge record breaker there, and that's why UT ultimately lost the game. Also, just control the ball, make the defense make you turn the ball over. That is how they will win the game. You control the ball, long drives, maybe get a field goal out of it, tire down the defense. That's all you got to do. Control the ball, control the clock.
Steve Sarkisian has preached a lot about defense this season. We saw their most defensive takeaways last week against Oklahoma. They got 2 interceptions. Certainly looking to do more of that against Iowa State. Jordan?
Yeah, I think Sark goes in the locker room, says, all right, you see Arch Manning up in the crowd? Don't screw this up for us. No, but I think that Texas actually got a pretty good trial run to see what they're kind of up against with the Iowa State defense against Oklahoma, because the DC for Iowa State, John Heacock, he's actually worked closely with Brent Venables in the past. They run a lot of similar schemes. Iowa State runs a lot of 3 high safeties, and they're able to mix up a ton of coverage. And so I think that, and they've given Texas a lot of grief in the past. They've won 3 straight. Last year, Texas only came out at Ames with 7 points, and it led to that Bo Davis roasting on that bus that one time. To avoid that roast session, Texas has a much better offense this year. I think that they just have to execute as they did against Oklahoma, bring that explosiveness, and don't overlook this opponent. I know that there's a lot of good games on the horizon, but Iowa State can give you a game too.
Certainly is a trap game, even though the Cyclones are pretty banged up and still trying to find their stride on offense. Jordan, I think it is a big game, and it is because Arch Manning is going to be in the crowd, along with a plethora of other important recruits. You're getting the 3 on this one. Robert, love your point about Quinn. I think he's got to be the guy this game just because that Iowa State secondary is a little bit depleted back there, a little bit inexperienced. That's going to be an X factor. Jaleel Billingsley, by the way, the Alabama transfer tight end, makes his return after a 6-game suspension this week. Ryan, you run us out with the 1. We are 3 questions in, and we've got a good battle on our hands, folks, jumping out early. Executive producer Jordan in front with 8 points. Right behind him is Robert with 6, and rounding out the top 3 is Ryan with 5. Still a lot of time to go, folks. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back on College Crossfire. Welcome back to College Crossfire. Let's start with a quick score recap. In first, it's executive producer Jordan with 8 points. Right behind him in second is Robert with 6. And last but certainly not least with 5 is Ryan, saying it's time to go. It is time to go for our second block of questions. Here we go. The MLB Playoffs have begun, and we've already had plenty of fireworks through the first couple of games. The Braves, Mariners, Guardians, and Padres all fell behind yesterday to start the division series. We've got a couple game twos tonight. Out of those 4 squads, though, which team has the best chance to come back and fight in their respective series? We're going to go ahead and start with Jordan here.
Yeah, I think that the Braves is probably the obvious choice because they were the only team that was initially favored that did lose. But just because they're the obvious choice doesn't mean they're the incorrect one. I think that even though they did lose home field advantage to the Phillies and they didn't look very great doing it, yeah, I think it might have just been a case of maybe rest versus rust. Sometimes having your team sit for that long isn't very good for winning the next game. And the Phillies, they came into the wild card game, and I thought they looked dead coming into the postseason. They won that game, got a lot of juice, got a lot of momentum, and they came in and showed Atlanta who's boss, I guess. But I think that Atlanta's team just has too much talent to stay down for long. From Max Fried on the mound, even though he didn't look too great, to Travis D. or I don't remember how to say his name. It's French. It's French. You know, I'm a big believer in talent bailing out a team when it's failing, and so I think that's what's going to happen with Atlanta.
We'll see if the World Series reigning champions can bounce back in that opening series. Robert, your thoughts?
Atlanta Braves, me too. Only home team to lose their first game. You know, they're back at it tonight. Kyle Wright is on the mound. He's obviously one of their star pitchers. I can't imagine that Ronald Acuna Jr. and Dansby Swanson aren't also going to step up to the plate. You know, the Braves just need to win one home field advantage game. They win one, series is tied. They head to Philadelphia with just as an equal shot for the Phillies just to take over the series. But you know, Wright is on the mound tonight, and I can't imagine that he won't do his thing.
All right, Ryan, run us out.
Yeah, I'm going to piggyback off of what both these other guys said. I'm going to go with the Braves. I'm going to go for a little bit of a different reason. You look at the Braves and you think, oh, yeah, Ronald Acuna is great, right? But they got other and deeper batters than that are definitely better than the Phillies, basically 6 through 9 batters. You look at Matt Olson, Austin Riley, guys like that. And then what really matters in the playoffs, the bullpen. You look at the Braves throughout the regular season, had the 2nd best ERA in the bullpen out of the NL. The Phillies, the 5th worst ERA out of the NL in the regular season. So bullpens play are a big deal, but the Braves throughout their team, offensively, defensively especially, starting pitching and bullpen pitching, they're better than them in every category. So,
like I said last week, I think bullpens are the most important part when it comes to playoff baseball. So for that reason, Ryan, you'll get the 3. Robert, you're going to go ahead and get the 2, and Jordan, you're going to get the 1 to start us off here in the second block. Moving on to our next question now. Former Carolina Panthers head coach Matt Rule was fired on Monday after an overall 11-27 record in less than 3 seasons with the Panthers, forcing the organization to pay off the rest of his 7-year, $62 million contract over the next few seasons. While Rule looks elsewhere to find another head coaching job, rumors are flying that he could end up back as a college head coach. Remember, he was the head coach at Baylor before he went to the Panthers. Coaching positions like Nebraska are flying around. But we'll focus back on the NFL here, guys. What other coaches around the league are starting to hit the hot seat a little bit? Robert, start us off.
You know, I think it's an obvious choice. Ron Rivera, NFC East, past 10 years historically, like a conference that a lot of people make fun of. Giants, Cowboys, Eagles, and now you have the Commanders. You know, but now they're all good this year. They look like one of the best conferences. If you want to play with big names, you got to win games. Ron Rivera, since 2020, an 8-14 record. That can't happen. You know, he was coaching for the Carolina Panthers, took them to the playoffs 4 times out of 8 seasons, including a Super Bowl. But you're running an 8-14 record since you lost in the wild card 2 seasons ago. You got to play with some big teams, especially you're 1-4 right now, and the Giants, Eagles, and Cowboys are basically being talked about as the 3 best teams in the NFL. Not the 3, but you know, like top 10.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And we saw earlier this week Ron Rivera with a little bit of a questionable quote directed towards his starting quarterback, Carson Wentz, when he asked what the discrepancies were on his team and why they weren't as good as the Cowboys, the Eagles, the Giants, all in that division. He said quarterback. So Carson Wentz maybe needs to step it up a little bit. They play Thursday night against the Bears in what is going to be the best Thursday night game of the year, by the way. Go Bears. Ryan?
Yeah, I'm going to piggyback off of Robert yet again, and you took the quote right out of my mouth. I was just about to say the exact same thing, but you cannot be asked the question, what's the problem with your team? Why are you falling behind in the NFC East? And you say quarterback. First off, you don't say any position. You say, it's on me, I got to do better, our staff has to do better. You cannot throw your quarterback, who's also, by the way, top 5 in the NFL in passing yards right now, completely under the bus. That's ridiculous. How about you take some responsibility, look at the defensive side of the ball, and say, why am I giving up 27 points per game? Why is Terry McLaurin not averaging like 100 yards a game like he should be doing? It's completely ridiculous to me. He's 100% on the hot seat, 1-4 through the first 5 games. To be honest with you, get him out of there.
Hey, Commanders, if you're looking for a new head coach, it sounds like he's got some good ideas over here around first base. Jordan, close us out.
Yeah, it may seem premature to put Nathaniel Hackett on the hot seat after just 5 games as a head coach, but that's exactly what I'm about to do. And I'm going to look into the camera while I say this because Nathaniel Hackett stinks. He cannot coach. He honestly could have been fired after that first game against the Seahawks for some of those bonehead, no timeout, 63-yard field goal decisions he made, and he hasn't gotten any better. The Broncos were one of the most hyped teams coming into this season with a new staff, new quarterback in Russell Wilson, and don't even get me started on Russell Wilson right now, but they stink. And it's mainly Hackett's fault because he came in as this offensive genius from Green Bay. He had all these weapons to play with, like Cortland Sutton and Jerry Jeudy, and Javonte Williams tore his ACL. That's not Hackett's fault. That's an injury. But the offense is struggling is not a strong enough word. The offense looks dead right now. The offense, it's painful to watch every single week, and I know because I watch Russell Wilson. He's on my fantasy team Anyway, sorry. Let me get back on track. He hired a special tough decisions maker after the Seattle game. I can't believe I have to say this, but he's the coach. Like, it's his job to make the tough decisions. What are you doing, right? I mean, come on, man. He's clearly in over his head. He's lost the support of the fan base. Shout out Clark Dalton. And if I'm the Waltons, he would have been out the door already. I'm sorry, Nathaniel Hackett.
Wow, so tell us how you feel about Nathaniel Hackett. And shout out to Yardbarker's finest, Clark Dalton, out there. Hopefully he's watching us. For that impassioned speech about Nathaniel Hackett, Jordan's going to get the 3 here. Ryan rounds it out with the 2. And then Robert closes us out with the 1. All right, fellas, we got 1 question left here in this blog. Let's get into it. We're 6 weeks into the college football season, and it's been just about as wild as we've expected. This is one of the questions where we'll look back on it in a couple weeks and just kind of question our decision. Like, what are we thinking here? But that makes for the best content. That's what makes this show great. That being said, the question is, who are the 4 teams right now who should be in the college football playoff? Ryan, start us out.
All right, I'm going to give you the 3 real quick. You got Georgia, you got Ohio State, and you got Alabama. Those 3 are almost locks, and I think everybody in the country knows that. Here's where I'm going to go a little bit crazy. I'm going to predict UCLA to be in the very front running at the end of this thing. Look, UCLA, 2 top 15 wins in the past 2 games. Another top 15 game against Oregon this weekend. They get that done, they're within the top 8 teams in the country. All they got hard teams remaining on the schedule is USC. And yes, USC has looked great. But that helps their case. They get through Oregon, you beat USC, they will win out after that 100%. An undefeated UCLA team in the Pac-12 with that many top 15 wins gets in. Those are my 4 teams.
How about the Pac-12 after dark making a push for the playoffs? That UCLA-USC game is going to be one to definitely watch out for. Jordan, your thoughts?
Yeah, me and Ryan must have been thinking along similar lines. I wasn't going to choose UCLA, but I was actually going to choose USC. The first 3 teams, givens, obviously, Ohio State, Alabama, Georgia, in whatever order you choose. But USC has looked really good under Caleb Williams and Lincoln Riley. That offense looks explosive, and while they haven't played that many quality opponents yet, I mean, it is the Pac-12. They have Utah coming up this weekend, who's all right, and then they have UCLA later in November, and that's going to be a tough matchup. But I think that their strength of schedule is pretty easy, and it might be pretty easy for them to remain undefeated. And I think if they have a lossless record and a potential Pac-12 championship, it'll be hard not to let a big program like USC in.
I think you could really say that the winner of that UCLA-USC game could be that 4th playoff team if they really make an impressive run for it. We'll see how that one turns out. Go ahead and close us out, Robert.
Jordan, very similar. So rounding out at 1, no one's stopping the Georgia Bulldogs. Kirby Smart, this is my SEC now. Nick Saban, move over. I don't see anyone stopping Georgia. Stetson Bennett is still that guy. They're going to go to the SEC championship. They're going to face off against Alabama. At 2, Ohio State. CJ Stroud, you're my Heisman winner right now. Here's no one stopping you. You're blowing out every single opponent. You're going to kill Michigan in the game. And then 3, USC. They make the Pac-12 fun. Caleb Williams, Lincoln Riley, the most dangerous quarterback coach duo in the NFL, duo in college right now, excuse me. You know, OU, who knows where they would be if they still had one of those people right now. Number 4, Alabama, and I put Alabama at 4 for one reason. It's all going to come down to the SEC championship. You know, Georgia and Alabama, I think they're givens to go. But Nick Saban, he's going to do his thing. Bryce Young, Jalen Milroe, you know, the quarterback position is a little shaky right now with what's going to be for the rest of the season. But Alabama will find a way like they always do. It's just going to come down to who wins the SEC championship. If Alabama loses, they'll be at number 4. Georgia will be at 1. If Alabama wins, it's going to be Alabama at 2 and Georgia at 4.
Certainly a lot of good points there and a lot of top 4s. Robert, I like yours the most. I think that Alabama, because of that quarterback controversy, and don't get me wrong, we are big Jalen Milroe fans, especially me. Shout out Katie Tompkins High School. I think he's going to bounce back, find the track, and help Alabama win if Bryce Young can't come back. So you're going to get the 3 here for this one. Jordan rounds us out with number 2, and then Ryan closes us out with number 1. I just don't see UCLA making it. I think you make a good point, but I think USC wins that game when those 2 face off in a couple weeks. I'm glad you guys didn't say Texas. There have been some wild rumors that Texas could be the number 4
Would be
team.
great,
There's
but,
no way, folks.
yeah.
We'll see. We are a Texas student television program, but there's no way. All right, we're 6
only
questions
dream.
in, and with 3 to go, it's still wide open on the leaderboard. Jordan leads us in first place, Robert right behind him in second, and Ryan rounds us out in third. We've got one more round to go, and you know what that means. Rapid fire coming up next on College Crossfire. It's time for the last 3 questions of the night for us here on College Crossfire, and you know what that means. It's the rapid fire round where the points are double, so it's anybody's game. If you're new to the show, rapid fire is our third and final segment where our contestants will have to answer 3 questions just like they have the rest of the night, but this time they have no idea what I'll be asking them. Everything is off the dome. They say that defense wins championships. That's not true. Rapid fire wins championships. Let's find out who tonight's champion will be. To go to start, one of the best parts about coming up to the Cotton Bowl every year is hitting the state fair after the game. From Fletcher's Corn Dogs to Midway, there's plenty to eat and enjoy alongside Big Tex in the background. All that segues into this. Try and avoid foods that are already sold at the fair, fellas. What food would you want to try fried?
You know, I'm going to go with, and this is a big one at the Houston Rodeo, but fried Oreos. I've been going to the state fair for many years now. I don't think I've ever seen a single fried Oreo there. I've seen it in Houston all the time. Those are so good. You know, if they had just a little bit of that, you know, put in the Midway, right by Big Tex, right by Crazy Mouse the roller coaster, I think people would go back to the state fair just and stay a little longer, even after a Texas Longhorn win or even an Oklahoma Sooner win.
Fried Oreos, a staple of the Houston Rodeo. 2 left.
Oh, I think this is a tough question. Something fried. You know, as a San Antonio native myself, I'm a bit partial to breakfast tacos, and while we do have chimichangas, which are fried burritos, I don't think I've ever seen a fried taco before, and I think that would be something really, really interesting. If you get a good, like, salsa going, that could be really good.
Fried tacos. I'm kind of a fan of that. Okay, Ryan?
I'm going to go with frog legs. I don't know if you ever had frog legs, but frog legs are yummy, yummy. Oh, my gosh. I had them in Florida one time. Oh, those are so good, especially if you're playing TCU. The Longhorns may be playing TCU. Hey, let me serve up some frog legs for you. How awesome would that be? Fried, just munching on those things. Bye-bye TCU. That's what I'm talking about right there.
All right. Yeah, I'm not a fan of frog legs, so for that, Ryan, you're going to get the 2 on this one. Fried tacos sounds extremely enticing to me, so Jordan, you'll get the 6 here. Nice. And then Robert, you've got the 4. So that makes things a little bit more interesting, guys. Moving on to our second question. MLB playoffs are underway. It means that teams will do anything they can to get a leg ahead. You see here in the clip, most recently, Mets manager Buck Showalter stopped a game last week for umpires to check Padres pitcher Joe Musgrove's ear in the middle of his outing, to no avail for the Mets, as Musgrove went on to pitch 7 innings, allowing just 1 hit and 1 walk while striking out 5 batters, and the Padres blanked the Mets 6-0 and punched their ticket to a day with the Dodgers in the National League Division Series. By the way, the Mets were the first team in 101 wins to lose in the wild card round. Just completely embarrassing. Guys, with this in mind, picture yourselves heading into the divisional series with one goal in mind: throwing off the opposing team's starting pitcher. What's your strategy to get in their head?
Oh, okay. Well, first of all, shout out Daniel Sheet, who is in that VO over there. But second of all, I'm a big fan of, and I don't know how cool this is, but back in high school, when me and my friends were in the audience for basketball games, we would look up on Instagram the opposing players and look at their girlfriends. And whenever they went for a free throw, we would shout the names of their girlfriends. And so I think that you could do that with MLB pitchers too. Justin Verlander, isn't he dating Kate Upton or something
Married.
like that?
They're
married to Kate Upton. Yeah, exactly. So be like, hey, Justin, what's Kate doing tonight? You know, so I bet that would get in his head for sure.
You have to think that that might be a pretty common chant for Justin Verlander, just because Kate Upton is such a public figure, I guess. I have no idea. I don't pay attention to that. So, good point to start there, guys. Any other thoughts?
Yeah, I'll take this. You know how some people wear those shirts around where it's like they're in a bathing suit or they're in a bikini? Get the whole first row. Just give it to them. They don't even got to go buy it. Just have it there in their seat. Make them things, put them on. And then they're just like, you know, messing around. I think it really distract the pitcher behind the plate, to be completely honest with you. If you're seeing just a bunch of people in swimsuits and bikinis and in shirts like that, I think that'd be, you know, pretty weird.
Yeah, certainly something that would throw them off, because that's just right
in the eyesight.
All right, so we got 2 answers down. Robert?
I think you get a giant posse like the Hellraisers that you see at Texas football games, but they're not there to cheer. They're there to also sit in the front row, and they're going to paint just jokes on their chest. And giant letters, one person has a giant letter on their chest, make a joke throughout the entire section, and you just make the most weird or hard to understand joke ever, but it just gets the pitcher thinking all game, like, what does that even mean? Or like, is this about me? You get him thinking the entire game, and you just disturb him.
I love the complexity of that idea. So for that, you're going to get the 6, Robert, and then Ryan, you'll get the 4. I think that's definitely a good strategy to throw off a pitcher. Jordan, you round us out with the 2. All right, guys. Last question here. This is for all the marbles. In the past few weeks, the NFL has been under scrutiny for roughing the passer calls, most notably this past Sunday when the Atlanta Falcons were robbed of a chance to potentially beat Tom Brady and the Buccaneers after Grady Jarrett got a questionable roughing the passer call against him after he seemingly normally sacked Brady. Justin Gooseman in the back doing mics tonight, I guarantee you, is already fuming watching this video over again. This led to the Buccaneers winning the game 21-15, and they hold on to the top of the NFC South. Panelists, my final question to you. If you could remove one rule from any sport, all sports, which one would it be and why? One rule, you get to just take it away completely.
That's a really good question.
I'm going to get a lot of disliking comments from this one, but no matter how much you try to explain this rule to me, I have never understood it in my life. That is offsides in soccer. I don't think I've ever understood it. And I know we have some soccer fans here. I know. But, I didn't really grow up watching that sport, but I think it's so fascinating. I think the World Cup is so fun to watch. I just have never understood the idea of offsides. And when you're watching it and you see it, I don't know why one goal couldn't be a goal. I'd take away offsides. It's just too hard.
But you also have to think, if people are just cherry picking the whole game, that's just kind of a broken strategy. Your goalie, who's got a boot, can just send it down the other side of the field.
Well, why doesn't the goalie just stay at their goal then?
Well, because they got to save the goal. That's my thoughts, but nonetheless, a good point, because I do think that some offsides calls can kind of ruin the game a little bit if it's maybe a little too close. You can't really tell. So certainly a good point to start us off. We got 2 answers left.
I think, you know what, I was gonna say an NFL answer, but I'm actually gonna go with, and it's gonna surprise you, Tommy, an F1 answer to shout out Samantha Pearl back out in Master Control. I believe there's a rule. I believe there's a rule that there's a cost cap on building the construction of the car. Right? You can't spend above a certain amount to keep things fair. I'd get rid of that cost cap. I would make Mercedes, Ferrari, all the richest programs. Watch them build like the most expensive, elaborate supercar of all time. I bet you could get some crazy innovation going, and then even then, you could have teams that didn't even have F1 that just have money, that just want to build crazy cars, come into F1. You get rid of that cost cap, you can see some like Mad Max style cars out on those F1 races.
I know absolutely nothing about F1. The only thing that I know is cargo vroom, and whoever finishes first wins the race. So that's all I know, but that does sound like a really solid idea. Ryan, you're the last one.
I'm going to say let fans go onto the field basically whenever they want to. Heck, if you're playing an NFL game and these guys want to come out onto the field and challenge you in full pads, I had a buddy this past weekend go out onto the field and he got laid out by an OU linebacker, dude. Heck, if you want to come out onto the field, come test me. And for the players, it's free will. Go ahead and hit them. I mean, it's their death wish. So I would say let players go out into the field if they want them to try it, and then bang, get a little hit to them.
Wow, so Ryan is encouraging violence, essentially, with players going out on the field. I think it's an interesting story because we saw a couple of weeks ago Bijan Robinson walking across campus with a football in his hands, and a student tried to punch it out. That's never going to work out. So you see Bijan on campus, don't even try. I don't care who you are. You could be 6'7", fully jacked. You're not getting the ball out of his hands. I'm sorry. They've only done it 3 times in over 700 snaps during his Texas career. It's not going to happen. What a great way to close out the show. This was, I think, our best show of the year, and obviously we try to do that every week, but you guys were amazing tonight. Sadly, though, there can only be one winner. And today's College Crossfire champion is, drumroll please, to our very large crowd, it's going to be executive producer Jordan with 29 points. Jordan, congratulations.
Thank you.
We have time for FaceTime. Yes, we do. Jordan, take it away.
Nice. Well, one more shout out to Adam and Samantha in Master Control. Thank you for letting me be on air. Shout out to my parents back at home. Shout out Lamar Jackson jersey back here. We're going to smoke the Giants this week. Yeah, I mean, just live your life, bro. Shout out Texas. Shout out Texas Fight. Have a great night.
Wow. Words of wisdom from the great Jordan Geelhoed. Congratulations, Jordan, and huge thank you to Robert and Ryan for coming out tonight. You guys did amazing as usual, and we'll have these guys back on at some point during the year for certain. That's going to do it for us here in the TSTV studios. Before you go, make sure to remember to come back Friday mornings for the 1-0 Sports Show with Adam Ogburn and Monday nights for College Press Box. Thank you to our live studio audience for coming out and being great as usual, for our contestants, and for everyone in Master Control, including Samantha Pearl and Adam Ogburn, who Jordan mentioned, and another thanks to our great executive producer, Jordan Geelhoed, who makes this all possible. All the other great folks at TSTV as well. Signing off from the studio, my name is Tommy Yar, saying good night, and we'll see you next time.